Hello, lacrosse fans. Welcome back to Inside the World of the Box Lacrosse with Adam Levy. I'm Steven Stamp, and we are at the awards watch, and we've talked about rookies early on. We've talked about goalies. We've talked about transition players. We've got a couple categories left. We're going to go to the defenders this week, and I wanted to talk defenders, and you wanted to talk defenders, and it turns out we have one of the same guys for sure in the conversation. But I sent the email first. So I get to say that I think Matt Hossack, not Graham Hossack, who obviously is still really good. I think Matt Hossack is one of the leaders. He's just playing maybe at his career best level. I know Saskatchewan was thrilled to get him at 6 in the Panther City dispersal draft. I had him in my mock draft of that as the number 4 pick. And I think, teams might be looking and saying, wow, maybe we should have jumped on the Hossack train a little earlier.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, with the history he also has for that organization, winning a championship with them previously, I mean, he is really making an impressive return. And yes, you're exactly right. He was top of mind for both of us. Looking at those stat numbers so far this season, he leads the National Lacrosse League with 9 caused turnovers, also has 3 blocked shots as well, but just a steady defender. And, I was going to say that for me, I could even choose someone, although Robert Hope for me is someone who's standing out as he always does, it seems, but 6 blocked shots, 6 caused turnovers, 35 loose ball recoveries, which is a league high or tied for a league high with Zach Currier. And you see how the Colorado defense obviously didn't make me look as good or the team look as good defensively against that potent San Diego team. But prior to that, especially in that second half versus Vancouver, you've seen what they can do defensively. It helps when Dylan Ward is shining. But, you could look at another guy and really so many different guys.
Let me hop in on Hope for a moment. And I want to say, first of all, with Messenger, you talked about the stats, which are great. Especially or anytime, but especially early in the season, especially with defenders, I think the eye test is really important. And Matt Hossack has just looked fantastic. Yes. And Robert Hope, not that he's an old guy, but he's looked rejuvenated. He is a veteran now, and he is looking very much like the guy who kind of burst onto the scene 3 or 4 years into his career. I mean, he was a top half of the first round draft pick. He was. We knew, if you're watching him leading up to his NLL career, you knew he was really good, but he is kind of back to that. And there are other folks that we can throw in, and I'll let you dump somebody in there now.
Yeah, can we pause for a sec? My cat is meowing in the background. I just don't want that. Yeah, so Stamper, for me, we were talking about other guys in Saskatchewan on that eye test. I mean, you can see Messenger doing what he does best, those big hits that he seems to deliver, that Saskatchewan back end. And give credit also to Frank Chiliano, who looks like he's having a phenomenal year so far. The numbers show it. He's been really solid. But yeah, Mike Messenger is one of those guys. And I wanted to just point out, as a big numbers guy myself, and, I know that we both have a lot of respect for Ty Mera, who does timerlacrosse.com. It's actually not Ty Mera Lacrosse.
I thought it was Ty Mera.
I actually had Ty as a guest on my podcast that's coming out today. And he explained that it's supposed to be like timer lacrosse, like a clock. So it is timerlacrosse.com. But looking at his numbers, I mean, first of all, if we just look at the typical set percentages, the shot percentage against for Saskatchewan is second best in the league, according to Ty Mero at 10.6%, only behind the Buffalo Bandits. Then if you look into what he calls the true percentages, so if we're looking at the true even strength shot percentage against, so that's like if you have whether it's a 5-on-5 or a 4-on-4, as long as you have even strength on both sides. There is an amazing stat where Saskatchewan leads the league with a true ESS percentage of 5.9%, which is so much better than everyone else. The next closest is actually Vancouver at 9%. So when there's even strength opportunities against them, Saskatchewan is just cracking things down at such a high level, which is great to see. And you see that in having both of their games been kept under 10 goals for the opponents. So their defense seems to be exactly what they've been building towards and hoping it would be for quite some time now.
Yeah, you've got a couple of other teams, I think, that, with really solid starts defensively, in the Albany Firewolves and the Buffalo Bandits, of course, allowing, Buffalo 7 goals a game,
Mm-hmm.
Albany 9 goals a game, and you've got to, I think, look at some of those guys, and I find it interesting. Like, you look at Buffalo and who's really standing out, and it's hard if it's a really good defense, it's hard to stand out. But I think Nick Weiss for Buffalo has been excellent. I think it's funny, you look at Steve Priolo; he has 0 caused turnovers.
Yeah.
But we know he's playing pretty good lacrosse out there.
Yeah. And it's interesting, actually, because I had Joey Capito as my guest earlier this week on the Lacrosse Matrix podcast. That episode is out. Go check it out on Spotify. And, he was saying, which I know that many players would agree, but he was open and honest with the fact that, and I think actually we've spoken about this, Stamper, before. No matter if you go into one arena, the way that they're going to track stats, loose balls, calls, turnovers, block shots is going to be different everywhere you go. And so, it was interesting to hear a guy like Joey mention that, well, you got to take it with a grain of salt, because you might think you had a good game, but the scorekeepers might not have thought the same. So, but yeah, I think you're exactly right.
Yeah, Joey Capito had a game several years ago when he was in Colorado, and I hadn't seen the game live. There's a bunch of games on, and I saw that he had 7 caused turnovers. And I thought, holy cow, that's quite a game. So I went and watched the game. Well, I tend to go back and watch, but I watched very specifically for him, and he had 2 caused turnovers, and maybe 2 other plays that you could maybe somehow see it. I don't know where the other 3 came from, and honestly, 5 were kind of phantoms. And that's nothing against Joey. He didn't give himself the caused turnovers. He just went out and played. And he had a couple, and he played well, but he didn't have 7 caused turnovers in the game. And that was his big year for caused turnovers, right? So I think it can be very, very sketchy in terms of, and like you said, the different arenas for sure. That year, Colorado had a ton of guys with just loads and loads of caused turnovers. They were just handing them out like candy. Or some places, I did a comparative of all the teams in the league that season, I think, and on IL Indoor, and I believe Rochester, there was somebody where you had to basically take somebody's arm off to get a caused turnover. Like, you just were not getting caused turnovers. So it can really impact the way that awards are looked at. So speaking of a grain of salt, we go to Albany. Mike Burton leads the way with 7 caused turnovers for them. He's right up near the top of the league. He's actually very good. He's a guy who I think has gotten better and better. He's played very well. But Colton Watkinson with 6 has been really dynamic. But a guy who I think just gets better and better every week. And there's only 3 weeks to look at in his career is Will Johansson.
Yes.
That guy is a beast. He's big and strong and way faster than anybody his size should be. He's got a couple of goals. And he's just been dynamite.
Yeah, he's amazing. I remember seeing him in the team's home opener a couple of weeks ago, and he put on an amazing performance. Had a goal, had a caused turnover, had some really gritty loose balls. It was really an amazing performance. Amazing to see how he's kind of burst on as a rookie after recovering, missing a whole year due to an ACL injury last year. So the fact that he seems so rejuvenated is incredible to see, and a super nice, calm, easygoing guy. He just goes out, does his business. I know he also lives in Market, so he's happy to be kind of one of the figureheads in terms of growing the game in the Albany community as well.
And he was their video coach last year. You'd see him on the bench with the iPod, and he's setting a great example, being a great role model for Curtis Conley, who we're actually seeing on the bench there for Albany. If he can follow the trajectory of Johansson, that would really be something. They have such a deep defensive roster. With Nick Tchaikovsky out, they finally get a chance to play Nicholas Volkov. He's played a couple of games, but he gets into a game. They still have Ben McDonald, first round draft pick a couple of years ago, who I think still has a ton of promise. He hasn't quite worked out with some injuries and stuff yet for him, but they've got Ben McDonald sitting and watching games. It is so hard to get into that lineup as a defender. And that's because you also got, I mean, you can go through the list of Nardella and Wagner and Kaschuk. Like, it just keeps going. Zach Masson, the rookie.
Yep,
Like,
Zach Masson.
there's so many guys. It's really something.
It is impressive. And just quickly, I guess as a final point on Albany, is that's one of the situations where you really do have to kind of watch and see things. Because, like, if you're just reading a box score or whatever, you might say, oh my goodness, they lost to Calgary. How could that have happened? The defense can't be that good. Well, really, until Dane Dobie's outburst in the fourth quarter, which was so out of this world that I don't think that's going to happen again, especially against a defense like Albany, like we're saying.
It hasn't happened before, right?
Exactly. And then a goaltender like Doug Jamieson, you know, they were really excellent up to that point. And even against Saskatchewan, were very solid as well. So, you know, I think you're spot on there that their defense looks great.
We still have our predictions to get to, which we kind of just fell into last week, but it was fun. And, we're going to look at the Vegas Philly rematch. So check us out on IL Indoor, subscribe to Blue Squatch Productions on YouTube, and we'll be right back.